Welcome to the VA Video Connect E911 demonstration. In the following moments, you will be seeing a provider and a veteran in a live VA Video Connect healthcare encounter. We will be in a virtual medical room, and we will demonstrate what a provider needs to do if an emergency happens during a VVC session.
As a veteran, what I would do is to join my VA Video Connect session, I would pull up the email that's associated with the appointment and click the link to join the VA Video Connect appointment. From here, I'm going to enter in my name and then my address. I'll go ahead and select Connect, ensure that my camera and microphone are working properly, and I will be connected with my provider.
Now let's take a look at what the virtual medical room looks like from the provider's point of view. So inside of a virtual medical room, I have my layout here, my preview, and my veteran. Good morning, Jeremy. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm glad to be able to connect with you today. Let me do a couple of things real quick before we get started. Is that okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. First thing I'm going to do is what we like to call caps lock. It's an acronym for a few things that I'd like to do with you today. First of all, the C stands for consent. So, Jeremy, we've already spoken about this, and you've given me already verbal consent for having a video session with me like this. Remember, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And that consent, by the way, it's only a one-time thing I have to do for my service. So thank you for consenting. Next, what I'd like to do is I'd like to verify your address. Patients may decline to give their location or contact information. If the patient is aware of the risks, that is their right, and the telehealth visit can continue without this information. Your best course of action is to explain the risks, continue the video visit, and document in the electronic health record that the patient declined to provide this information. So you're at home right now, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So on my screen here, give me a second to just validate your address. If something happens, I want to know where you're at, right? So give me just 1 second while I show the audience here. I'm going to click the controls, and I'm going to click the E911 emergency number. And I see that you've entered your address as being 2615 Clinton Avenue in Fresno. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Perfect. Thank you. Let me just pre-validate that address. Pre-validation means that I'm just going to verify that where you're at actually has what we call E911 services. And I do see that address is validated. The address that is entered has been validated for having E911, and I may continue. So I'm going to click close there. All right, thank you for allowing me to do that. So I've done the A and the C from caps lock. So now let me do the P. P is phone number. Do you mind giving me your phone number in case we get disconnected? I'll know where to reach you at by phone.
Yeah, sure. So it's going to be area code 559-225-6100.
Perfect. Got that written down. Just in case we have some difficulties or we disconnect with one another, I'll be able to just call you by phone and try to reconnect with you. Thank you for that. Next thing I'm going to do is S for survey the environment. So nobody else is at home with you right now, or is there? Are you by yourself right now today, Jeremy?
Yeah, I'm by myself today.
Okay, so you're at your home by yourself. Nobody else is there with you. All right, perfect. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lock my conference room. So let me show that to the audience, and then we'll get started with our healthcare encounter. Thank you for your patience, Jeremy. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to lock the meeting, and we're ready to go. Here's my confirmation on my screen that the conference is locked. By the way, Jeremy, locking the conference just ensures that nobody else can inadvertently join us during the session. Maybe if you share emails with someone, if they find that email, they wouldn't be able to join. And also from my end, also, it'll be just me and you, so this will be a private conversation. All right, so let's start our healthcare visit here. Thank you again for this. I see that you've joined without much difficulty, so that's great. That means the assistance that the VA provided in doing a test call with you worked, and you felt comfortable joining the session, right?
Yeah, it was very simple and easy.
Perfect. All right, so let's talk about your blood pressure, because I'm looking here in the healthcare record, and it looks like your blood pressure was a little high last couple of visits. So if I remember correctly, we issued you some peripheral devices from the VA, a blood pressure cuff, a scale, and a few other things. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, let's pull out your blood pressure cuff, and let's prepare to put it on. And then I'd like to see how we're doing with that, and then we'll go from there. We'll look at your meds afterwards, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Jeremy, are you okay? Hey, Jeremy. Oh, my gosh. All right, let me engage E911 here. I'm going to go on my screen here. See my Jeremy, my patient, just fell out of his chair. I'm not exactly sure what's going on. I'm going to click E911, the same button I clicked before. I already know he has a pre-validated address because we validated it already. And then I will proceed with the steps that I need to follow. I need to make sure that I get immediate assistance to him because he's home by himself and I'm not exactly sure what's going on. So I've already pre-validated his address. I'm going to put in my callback number here and it says use only in case of an emergency. And this is a true emergency. So I'm going to put in my phone number right now and I'm going to request an emergency contact number. All right, so now it's giving me this number. I'm going to get my phone and dial this number so I can speak to the E911 center, 719-203-1639. Yes, my name is Dr. Rivish. I'm on a live video session with a veteran. His name is Jeremy Chapman. And during our session, he had some sort of episode where he fell out of his chair, so I need immediate assistance sent to his address. Yes, his address is 2615 Clinton Avenue in Fresno, California, 93703. Yes, I'll stay on the line. He's home by himself, so if you can get there as soon as possible. I don't see him anymore. He fell down. In the midst of our conversation, he held his throat like he was having a hard time breathing, and now he's somewhere on the floor in the room, so I'm unable to see whether he's breathing or whether whatever else is going on. Oh, great. They're 2 minutes away. That's perfect. I'll stay on the line. By this point in the conversation, E911 services would have arrived at Jeremy's house. I would have stayed on the line until I see them in the actual live session because I haven't closed my session. I'm still live with them. I would see them arrive his room, and I would see them attending to the veteran. And if they needed any other information from me as a healthcare provider, I would be providing some more information like past medical history, list of meds, and whatever else they would ask for during their visit there. Jeremy, thank you. You can join us back here. Let's talk a little bit about some of the scenarios here for that. So a couple things we'd like to talk about. First of all, we wouldn't call the E911 number for practice or for test, only for a real scenario. So that's rule number one with regards to the E911 feature of VVC. So to recap real quick, first thing that's important in the process is that the veteran enters his address. If the veteran doesn't enter his address at time of entry into the virtual medical room, that would cause this field to be blank for me. And it's not a problem if a veteran doesn't put in his address, because either way, I'm going to do my caps lock process at the beginning. And in my caps lock, the A in caps lock is address. So I'm going to verify it. If the veteran didn't put an address here, I would be typing in the address myself. So if all these fields were blank, as I confirm his address, I would be typing it instead of the veteran typing it. So some veterans type it ahead of time, and some veterans have a little bit of difficulty and leave it blank. So then we as the providers would type in the address. At the beginning of the conversation, as part of the caps lock process, I would pre-validate his address. Now let's talk about that because Jeremy was at a place where there is E911 services. Well, not every veteran lives at a place where E911 services are available. So let's talk about that for a second. If Jeremy's address would have popped up as an address that doesn't have E911 services, what would I do then? So in that case, I would be asking Jeremy if he has some sort of local number that he uses for emergencies. Maybe he lives on a base somewhere and he has an emergency number that they use on the base. Or maybe he lives on a reservation somewhere and there's local emergency services on the reservation and he has that number. So that would be an alternative. If the veteran has a number, I would ask for it and he would give it to me. Again, this is in a scenario where the address that they provide is an address that doesn't have or is not covered by E911 services. The other alternative is if I try to pre-validate the address and I get a message on my screen that says this address does not have E911 services, it'll provide me what we call an emergency call relay center number. And that's that standard 267908 number. And we can put that on the screen here at the end of the presentation so that you can have that. The emergency call relay number is an alternative method. It's not the primary method. So the primary method is using the E911 services like we've demonstrated. Let me type in an address that doesn't have E911 services so that you can see what that looks like. So we have an example of an address here. So if the veteran would have given me this address as the location where he's at right now, I'm going to click pre-validate address. And what we will notice, different to what we saw for his real address, it says alert, 911 service is not available. This address does not have E911 coverage. Please use an alternative emergency means or call the 267-908 number. The 267-908 number is the emergency call relay center that I was mentioning. So this is our indication at the beginning of the session, even before we start having the encounter. While we're doing our caps lock, we're going to know whether the veteran is at a location where there are E911 services or not. And here's our indicator for that. Another reason why I might use the 267-908 number instead of the normal process, if this was a validated address, and over here, it asks for my callback number. You saw me do that in the demonstration. If my callback number required an extension, say I'm working at the main VA or I'm working at a CBOC and I don't have a direct phone number, if you notice here, the callback phone number that the system wants from us as VA clinicians, it doesn't include extensions. So I don't have the opportunity to put an extension here. So if I was at this number at extension 7500, the system doesn't allow for that. So this would be another example of when I would call the emergency call relay center because I don't have a valid usable number that I can enter into the system. And remember, by me putting in this number and requesting the emergency contact number, that's how I knew what number to dial. So now that has happened, my veteran was taken care of by the emergency services that arrived at his house. The other thing that I have to keep in mind is I'm going to want to document what has happened. So in my CPRS note, in my VVC clinic location progress note, I'm going to document that we had an emergency situation, and I'm going to outline the details of what happened in my progress note. One additional notification that I have to do as a VA clinician who has used E911 services is I would need to report the use of the VVC E911 services by following my local facility procedures. That may include contacting the facility telehealth coordinator or whatever other local processes each local VA decides. But I do need to report that I am a VA clinician that actually had to use the VA Video Connect E911 services on a veteran today. So that notification is important to telehealth offices. At that time, I could also provide any feedback that I would have had about my experience with the VVC E911 emergency number feature. All of what we have demonstrated today is described and outlined in a reference that it is the VA Video Connect Web Provider Guide. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share this information with you through a live simulation between Jeremy and myself. Keep safe out there providing care to our veterans. Thank you.